everybody. I wanted to update you on my BookTube prize reading, and I started with Where You Come From by Saša Stanišic and translated by Damion Searls, because that one was the first book that came, well, it was the only book that I was getting via e-copy from my library. All the other ones I got hard copies of, and so I started to read it first because you only get them for 21 days, and I just wanted to get it read. So I usually check in when I'm about halfway, and I think I'm under halfway, but the book is laid out in a very unique way, and that way is that it is it has a bit of choose your own adventure in it. So quite near the beginning, I think maybe 30 or 40 pages in, you get a chance to skip ahead and skip to future pages to read one of the anecdotes. And so it kind of flips you into the 300s, and you flip around the 300 pages, and then you go back to the first part. So it's kind of weird when you're reading a book that way to know exactly where you are in terms of finishing it. The book has, I think, 360 pages or so. So I'm not sure, like, the total that I've read, other than I'm at about 130 pages or something like that. So I'm really enjoying it. It's very different. I don't think I've ever read a book quite like it. Other than Homeland Elegies, which I read last year for the BookTube prize, which I think did a similar thing in terms of mixing nonfiction and fiction, and kind of, you're reading a novel, but it is about the author's own life, and it is about the author is using their own name and kind of their own experience in a sort of autobiographical way. But, and again, like, I'm not going to go and check, which things are correct and which things are fiction, because it doesn't really matter to me. I think the way Stanišic is creating the story, the way he has put it together is really compelling. I mean, he has some really good characters, and they're mostly his family members and people from the area of Yugoslavia where he grew up. And then he's also brings in Heidelberg, Germany, which is where he fled to during the war, because his parents were a mixed marriage. It was considered a mixed marriage in the Yugoslavian terms. So a lot of the specifics about the war going on there, it's not, some of it is gone into and some of it's not, because it's more of a personal story of war, and it's more about his experience of home and his experience of having a fractured identity based on these life events that occurred, and not only for him but for many members of his family. So you see kind of how the war and the turmoil politically, and the kind of divisions that started emerging in Yugoslavia in the early 1990s created this kind of division and fragmented life and growing up. So that's really interesting. There's a lot of mixtures of different languages. There's references to sports, because I think for his youth that was important to him. But the biggest and most compelling part of the story for me thus far is his relationship with his paternal grandmother. His grandmother, Christina, I think is her name, and she is experiencing dementia, and so he relays his memories of her in this very interesting way, where you're going back and forth in time, and even when you're in a certain time period, you can flip back to a previous time period where they were at that same place, and you're learning about the stories of his family, the stories of his people, of his ancestors, but also like how that relates to today and the villages and the towns where they all were. It's actually a really hard book to describe, but it is keeping me engaged, and I just find it a really interesting read, and it just keeps propelling me through the text, even though, like, I can't really say that there's a plot. I don't think there is a plot. You kind of enter the book under the beginning with him talking about filling out his some sort of a form, I think, for citizenship in Germany, and that's kind of how it goes. So it's not, and you flip back and forth between stories and memories and, you know, descriptions of the war and Yugoslavia at different time periods, and so and then different family members and their stories. So it is all over the place. Definitely not a lot of threads holding it together, but it seems to work. It's working. And I will check in again about where you come from when I get to the end. And yeah, I'm hoping it stays as good as it is right now.
Thanks to a little help from his recently dead friend, and with a smirk on his face, all the while Helen has been doing something. Just before Mr. Incredible's first appearance on that cliff overlooking those transport pods, we saw Helen over with Edna Mode, who had been enthusiastically showing off.
Hi everybody. I just finished Where You Come From by Saša Stanišic, and I really enjoyed it. It is such a hard novel to explain, and I don't even know if I can really tell you about the reading experience other than to compare it to Homeland Elegies by Ayad Akhtar. And for that reason, I have a feeling that it's probably not going to go through to the next round, because I really enjoyed Homeland Elegies last year, and it didn't go through. People did not like it as much as I did in my judging group. So I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't go through, but it has won a lot of awards. And the thing that I think it has that might appeal to people more than Homeland Elegies did was that there's not a lot of, there's no kind of, I don't think Homeland Elegies was proselytizing, but there are people that take those types of novels that way, where someone is relaying their experience of systemic racism or prosecution or being persecuted for their religion or something like that. They take it the wrong way. They feel personally attacked by the way that the story is told. So I think that's why Homeland Elegies didn't get through last year. This was in the fiction prize, obviously, fiction rounds. And Where We Come From doesn't have that tone at all. It's very personal, so it's told from even though it's a novel, it feels very much like it's his personal experience, and it's got a lot of element of fairy tale and storytelling and what is truth and what is not truth, and it plays with that idea really strongly through the whole text, especially with the choose your own adventure portion, which was a bit interesting because you kind of have this choose your own adventure portion near the beginning of the novel, and then you read through the rest of the novel, it ends, and then you have a second choose your own adventure portion. So at some point in that, I was reading through and flipping to the different pages, and then I just kept going till the end to kind of get a sense of how long. So I don't think I missed very much in the choose your own adventure section at all. But it's very hard to talk about. It's a really interesting reading experience. Compelling stories, very not a lot of waxing poetic or abstract thinking. Like there's a little bit, but not too much, which I tend to find kind of takes me out of the story if that happens. It's really about his family, the people he came from, the idea of home and what home means when you are a refugee, when your home has been, when there was a genocide in your country, and he doesn't really go into that in very much detail, the genocide that happened in Yugoslavia during the war there. He does mention here and there and allude to things, but there's no real like specifics about the war. So the way he tells the story is a little bit removed in some ways from the reality, but also is very poignantly told. And so you definitely feel connected to the horrible reality of having to flee your home and having to make a new home somewhere else, and then facing deportation and facing just not really ever having a strict home again, and then being able to go back to that place but still not really belonging. So there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there. So I really enjoyed it. I am super behind on my BookTube prize reading. I was hoping to read 3 in February, and it's February 23rd today, and I've only finished 1. So I'm going to start the next one, and I think I will include it into this vlog. So I think what I might do is do 2 books per vlog and do 3 vlogs. And so the next one I'm going to read is Loop by Brenda Lozano, and I will check in when I've got a few pages read of that and let you know my thoughts. Hey everybody, so I'm halfway through Loop by Brenda Lozano, and this is a Mexican novel translated by McDermott. So this is told in a journal style, short vignettes of text, little different thoughts are being shared in the little sections. The main premise of the story is that, now I can't even remember his name, Jonas has gone away on a trip with his sister and his father to Spain, and our protagonist is waiting for him. I believe she works in publishing or something like that, and that's it. We're just waiting with her for him to return, so it's kind of a modern day Penelope waiting for Odysseus. Is that right? Is that the right person? So, I mean, the connection is fine. I'm a little tired of Greek myths. I mean, I haven't even read a lot of Greek myth retellings, but the metaphor of reusing that story to me is a little bit done. But anyway, there are some nice references. She refers to songs, she refers to books, she refers to swallows as a bird, and so you get a little bit of snippet of history and a little bit of fact included in the fiction, which I enjoy. I looked up the songs she was talking about, not so much the books, because they seemed like mostly classics. So I'm just not books that would be books that I'd be interested in. My one issue, I don't find it super engrossing. This type of a thing is, kind of like being let in on someone's internal dialogue with themselves. So there's the repetition of her missing her boyfriend. There's the kind of day-to-day details of, like, I met up with this friend and we had beer and we talked about this, things like that, which are fine. But overall, it's not that it's not super engrossing because it's just like someone talking stream of consciousness without a lot of plot, or like she's not really waxing poetic, which I wouldn't prefer. Like I don't really want her to wax poetic. The other issue I have is that there is a dwarf being referred to. So I feel like when you are translating something, so I don't know what the Spanish word is for dwarf. I don't know how she referred to this person in her text, in the original text, and so how the translator decided to interpret that word. But the way it's being used, I don't find to be very sensitive to the reality of being a little person, because I believe in the very limited experience I have that people want to be called little people. They don't want to be called dwarves, because dwarves are characters from fairy tales and characters from stories, and they have a very specific association in fiction. And I think that she is making those connections, but the dwarf is based on an actual person in her neighborhood. So I find the way that he's been reduced to being a dwarf, and he has no other qualities in the story beyond being her neighbor and being a dwarf, is problematic to me. And I don't know if that was how she wrote it or if that is how the translator interpreted it. But I think that, you know, in this day and age, you need to be sensitive about how you're referring to people. And I think that she's playing with the word dwarf, she's playing with the idea of small, she's playing with it, with the word as a metaphor in the story, and I understand that she's playing with the interpretations of the text, but you have a responsibility to try to be sensitive to different types of people and not misrepresent them in your fiction, and I feel like that's happening here. I just don't think it was sensitive to a whole type of person who are trying to live their lives with dignity and not be reduced to fairy tale characters. So that's a big issue for me in here. And yeah, so I'm halfway, and I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's just doing its thing, and I will check in again when I am finished. Hey everybody. So I finished Loop by Brenda Lozano last night, translated by Annie McDermott. And nothing about the second half of the book changed my first set of opinions. I still think there was too much of the term dwarf used. There's a lot of... It's interesting that the book is called Loop because there was a lot of loops made in the narrative where she was constantly drawing a line back to something that had started at the beginning or started in the middle. She was always drawing lines back to things, and there was a level of repetition in that, and I totally understand why she created that repetition in terms of, you know, a narrative and a literary cleverness. There was a lot of clever things in it, but I did find it repetitive to the point of like affecting my enjoyment of it. And I don't think it was really successful for me. I think this could have been a really good short story. And I know that's a weird thing to say about a book that's not very long. It's only 180 something pages. But it was still too long, in my opinion. I think that some of it was boring and some of it was interesting and you know, had fun things to say, or philosophical things to say, or sentimental things to say. So I think if it would have been edited more, and shortened down and refined a bit, to really take all those really strong points of repetition and make them more solid, I think I would have enjoyed it as a reading experience more. There isn't really a story here. I can't say that a lot of this is going to stay with me. It's a bit too not indulgent, but just it's a bit too like lacking of character development for me, and interesting, like characters, like getting into the characters. She talks a lot about her friends in the narrative. She goes out a lot and parties with her friends. I don't know, I think maybe I'm missing part of the point of it. Like I don't think I would say I'm the target audience for her in this book, so maybe that's part of the issue, is that, you know, these types of things, like, it's not really a love story, you know, it's just a short glimpse into a life for a period of time where two lovers are separated. But I wouldn't call it a love story, and I wouldn't call it like, it's not trying to teach you anything, or, you know, it doesn't have a larger message other than life is repetitive at times. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say, this is definitely not going to be in the top of the list for me. Right now, my top is Where We Come From, and this is second only because I haven't finished any other books. I am reading Strange Beasts of China, but I'm going to end this vlog here and do 2 books per vlog. Yeah, I this is very middle of the road reading for me. Like, I would give it a 2.5 to 3 stars in terms of my interest level for reading. And I do find, the other thing that I find funny about this is that it was obviously translated by someone from the UK, which is fine. But it's interesting that a Mexican novel, was not translated by an English speaker from North America, because the terms were in here that were used, like for the car trunk, it was the car boot, and for diapers, it was nappies and things like that. Like, those are British words or words from the UK. So it was funny to me that, I don't know why. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. It's a good translator is a good translator, but I've already talked about my issues with the translation, and to me it was jarring to read those words, not because I haven't read them before and I don't know what they mean, because I do know what they mean, but when you see a book from North America, I just assumed it would have been translated by someone speaking with a North American vernacular. So just another little interesting tidbit there. So thanks so much for watching this vlog. The next one will have Strange Beasts of China, and I haven't decided which other one I'm going to start this week, but I will be starting another one soon, and you will find out all about that in the next vlog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon.